Do you truly understand your own sexuality? You believe you can identify what brings you pleasure, what gives you power, what makes you feel alive. But what if the very act of orgasm is slowly draining the life force from your soul, leaving you hollow, weak, a shell of the man you could become? Perhaps you've never paused to consider this, but reflect. Now, how many times have you felt strangely empty after that moment of pleasure? How many times have you promised yourself just one more time, only to fall back into the same pattern days or even hours later? Jung called this the shadow, that part of yourself you refuse to acknowledge, operating beneath your consciousness, driving you toward self-destruction while you rationalize it as natural or healthy. The most frightening aspect is that often you don't even realize you're trapped in this cycle. You think you're satisfying a need, relieving stress, enjoying one of life's pleasures. Meanwhile, you're sinking into a psychological state that's destroying your vitality, stealing your drive, keeping you chained to a diminished existence while the world passes you by. It's not just about pleasure. Jung made clear that what undermines the modern man isn't the act itself, but what it represents: complete surrender to immediate gratification and inability to channel vital energy toward higher purposes. You're not just releasing tension, you're releasing your power, your creativity, your very life force, what Jung called libido, the psychic energy that fuels all meaningful achievement and growth. The price you pay is far greater than you realize. With every mindless pursuit of orgasm, you surrender a piece of your potential. Your mind grows foggy, your will weakens, your ability to face life's challenges diminishes. And for what? A few seconds of pleasure that leaves you right back where you started, or worse, even emptier, hungrier for something you cannot name. Have you ever noticed how some men seem to have an almost supernatural command over their environment without saying a word? They command respect, they achieve goals, they build empires of meaning. Now imagine possessing that same power if you stopped reacting immediately to every urge, if you chose containment instead of release, mastery instead of slavery. What might happen? That's precisely the point. When you stop being constantly available to your own impulses, when you stop discharging your vital energy at every opportunity, something changes within you. Power accumulates, presence grows, people sense it. They may not know what it is, but they feel it. And those who've wasted their force on momentary pleasures look at you in confusion, wondering what secret you possess. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." Consider this: when you observe a man who has mastered himself, who radiates vitality and purpose, who isn't constantly seeking relief, don't you feel something? Isn't there a part of you that recognizes he has discovered something you haven't? This reveals more about you than about him. It mainly reveals how much you remain controlled by forces you don't understand. You've been taught to always indulge, to respond quickly to urges, to say yes to every impulse since childhood. You've been conditioned to believe your worth lies in consumption, in pleasure, in immediate gratification. But here's a truth perhaps no one has articulated with this clarity. This excessive availability to your own desires isn't freedom, it's imprisonment. As long as you continue believing you need to discharge your energy at every opportunity, you will remain weak, drained, and forgotten as soon as your youth fades. Why? Because being always available to your impulses makes you predictable. Everything predictable becomes a tool. Your own biology becomes a weapon used against you, and you willingly participate in your own diminishment. Jung did not view the human psyche as an automatic machine reacting to stimuli without consequences. For him, our mind functions as an energy system, and every thought, emotion, and action consumes part of that energy. The question is, are you choosing where your energy goes, or are you letting your most primitive urges decide for you? Every time you react impulsively to sexual stimulation, you waste psychic energy. when you spend hours consuming images of others' bodies, when you respond to primal urges just to feel momentary relief, when you engage in the cycle of stimulation and release, you're spending your inner strength on what doesn't nourish you. Jung was clear: what you resist persists. The more you give in to these patterns, the stronger they become, until they dominate your entire existence. People who live spiritually and emotionally drained aren't inherently weak. They're misdirected. And what happens to someone living in exhaustion? They become vulnerable, easy prey. Those who understand the unconscious forces within humans can sense this weakness. They notice you don't know how to guard your energy, that you react to every stimulus, that you're always chasing the next hit of pleasure. Jung said, a healthy psyche knows how to retain energy within the system. This means knowing how to say no to impulses without guilt, how to contain sexual energy without feeling deprived, how to observe urges without acting upon them. Because true power isn't found in immediate gratification. It lies in choosing when and how to express your life force. How many times have you lost focus because your mind was clouded with sexual thoughts? How many hours have you wasted that could have been spent creating, building, growing, all for a few moments of relief that left you right back where you started? This is energy being drained without return. You keep alive patterns that exist only because you insist on feeding them. Psychic energy resembles a force field. When well guarded, it creates presence. You enter a room and command respect without saying a word. But when poorly managed, when constantly discharged through compulsive sexual release, you become invisible, reactive, fragile. And the world shows no mercy to those who give away their power so easily. Therefore, begin observing your own triggers. What makes you reach for relief? What makes you lose your center? What emotions are you avoiding through sexual discharge? These are precisely the points where your energy escapes, and that's where you need to work, not to become cold or repressed, but to become selective, to establish sovereignty over your own life force. You think you're in control. You believe your sexual behaviors reflect conscious choices, but the truth is darker. Most of your responses to sexual stimuli are programmed, and those who create these stimuli understand this perfectly. They don't need to force you. They simply trigger the buttons you've left exposed, and you react always. Jung called this projection the psychological mechanism through which unconscious elements control your behavior. But there's another aspect to this phenomenon that few notice. While billion-dollar industries project sexualized images to capture your attention, you become the receptacle for these projections. And the more responsive you are to these stimuli, the more you become a blank canvas for manipulation. You know those moments when you find yourself consuming sexual content even when you didn't plan to. That urge to check certain websites even when you promised yourself you wouldn't. That pattern of relief-seeking that seems to happen automatically when you're stressed, bored, or lonely. None of this occurs by chance. These aren't relationships with yourself. They're relationships with unconscious patterns, using you as their vehicle. And why do you comply? Because you fear discomfort. You fear feeling the actual emotions driving you to seek relief. You fear the silence that comes when you don't immediately pacify every urge. The most effective manipulation doesn't happen through force. It happens through the silent voice of craving when you feel you need release. Relief escape even when it destroys you inside. Here's the central point. The compulsion doesn't need to control you consciously. It just needs you to keep reacting the same way. But when you stop reacting, the game breaks. When you start saying no, responding with containment, withdrawing your attention from stimuli, instead of feeding it, the projections begin to crumble. The hold that sexual compulsion has on you weakens. This leaves your mind clearer, your energy stronger, your will more powerful. But this change leaves people unsettled, especially those who profit from your compulsive behavior. Your new strength poses a threat because it means you can no longer be manipulated through basic drives. Your containment of sexual energy reveals what they don't want you to hear: the voice of your authentic self, calling you toward a life of meaning rather than momentary pleasure. Jung said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you withdraw your energy from compulsive sexual patterns, when you stop feeding the cycle, your shadow begins to emerge: all the emotions, needs, and truths you've been avoiding through sexual discharge. This proves unbearable at first for those who have always used sexuality as an escape. But what about you? Are you ready to deal with the discomfort of containment? Are you prepared to feel the emotions that surge when you don't immediately seek relief? Are you willing to endure the withdrawal that comes after stopping these patterns? Because it's precisely in that struggle that a new kind of power is born. The modern world is noisy, hypersexualized, constantly triggering. Everyone wants immediate gratification, wants to respond quickly to every urge, wants to escape every uncomfortable feeling, even at the cost of their vitality. But there exists a power that few know and even fewer master: the power of containment, not the containment of repression or denial, but conscious, strategic, brutally lucid containment of sexual energy. Jung saw containment not as a void, but as fertile ground for inner growth. When you stop reactively discharging sexual energy, you begin to observe what drives these patterns. Through observation, you notice what previously went unrecognized: emotional triggers, unconscious fears, attempts to escape psychological discomfort. Containment allows for lucidity, and lucidity endangers those who control you through your own biology. Have you noticed how industry knows exactly how to trigger your sexual impulses? Have you observed how precisely they capture your attention through these basic drives? It's not because they miss you, it's because your reactivity gives them control over your attention, your time, your very life force. While you discharge, they collect your clicks, your views, your precious life energy converted into profit while you grow weaker. True containment isn't the absence of sexuality. It's mastery over your own energy. It's refusing to be dragged down by programmed stimulation. It's consciously choosing not to participate in the drainage of your own power. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires this distance, because only in containment can you listen to yourself without the world's interference. Don't be deceived. Containment has a price. It will distance you from the easy pleasures most chase without question. It will make you incomprehensible to those who remain slaves to every urge. It will make you seem different, controlled, perhaps even strange. But all this represents a reaction from those who never wanted to develop self-mastery, only self-indulgence. Here's the hard truth. The more you develop this power of containment, the more selective you become with your energy, because you understand that each discharge represents an energetic investment, and not every impulse deserves access to your life force. Sometimes containment isn't deprivation, it's sovereignty. It's useless understanding all this intellectually if in practice you continue giving in every time an urge arises, responding to every sexual trigger that appears before you, participating in energy drains that exist only because you insist on feeding them. Awareness without action is just another form of self-deception. True change begins when you firmly decide to become selective with your own life force. This requires discipline. Conscious containment isn't about being repressed, fearful, or ashamed. It's about no longer being accessible to every trigger, every urge, every program designed to drain you. It's about taking control of your own energy, your own power, your own future. This starts with small actions. Not responding immediately to sexual triggers, breathing before reacting, leaving a website before being dragged into the cycle, turning off devices without guilt, saying, "Not today," and saying, "I choose my power over momentary pleasure." Here's the most important part. You don't need to justify your containment. You don't need to explain your choice. You owe nothing to anyone but your highest self. Jung understood that every process of individuation goes through stages of letting go, but not letting go into hedonism. A sacred letting go of what drains you. A time of inner rebuilding where you relearn to direct your energy without the world's interference, where you reconstruct your identity, not based on consumption, but from your own center of power. Want to know a good measure for your growth? Observe what begins to change when you become more contained. Notice how your mind clears, how your energy builds, how your presence strengthens. Observe who tries to pull you back into old patterns when you stop participating in your own diminishment. These aren't signs that you're wrong. They're proof that you've begun to free yourself. Being contained is uncomfortable at first. You will feel urges. You will think you're being deprived. You will hear that you're being too hard on yourself. But this is part of the recovery process. You've spent your life being conditioned to discharge your power at every opportunity. It's natural that change causes discomfort. Conscious containment forms the foundation of self-determination. When you say no to compulsive release, you're saying yes to your future self. When you withdraw from the cycle of stimulation and discharge, you're reaffirming that your growth is worth more than momentary pleasure. And when you stop explaining your choices, you begin to be respected, even if at first it's only by yourself. Not everyone is ready for this type of strength. Your containment will expose how others remain slaves to their own impulses. It will reveal how much they depend on collective approval for their behaviors to feel normal. And it is at this moment that the separation comes. And with separation comes growth, power, awakening to what you could always have been if you hadn't been draining your life force away. When you stop being available to every sexual impulse, something profound begins to happen. First comes discomfort, an uncomfortable tension that seems to scream inside you. You wonder if you did the right thing, if you're being too hard on yourself, if you're denying something essential. But gradually this tension transforms. It begins to fuel you, strengthen you, build you. Then comes power, not the power of domination, but the power of presence, your own presence fully charged. The power of one who no longer betrays himself to chase momentary pleasures. And in that space where once there was compulsion, clarity enters. Where once there was brain fog, sharpness enters. Where once there was weakness, a new kind of strength enters, the strength of being whole within yourself. Jung said that the process of individuation, becoming who you really are, requires withdrawing energy from unconscious patterns, stopping what diminishes you, walking alone for a while if necessary. And that is exactly what you're doing when you decide to contain your sexual energy. You're not rejecting your sexuality. You're returning it to its proper place within a balanced psyche. It is at this point that you stop being a reactor and become a creator. You cease being shaped by programming and begin shaping your reality from within. The urges that once controlled you reveal that they never owned you. They only borrowed your power through your unconscious cooperation. Now that you no longer fit the mold of the easily manipulated consumer, you discover who you actually are. You will lose easy pleasures, but you will find lasting power. You will distance yourself from mindless habits, but you will reconnect with your essential strength. You will become different, but finally you will begin to be whole. Because when you are no longer available for unconscious drainage, you become valuable, rare, powerful in ways that few modern men understand. This is a rebirth, a new beginning, the start of a life where you are no longer available for energy depletion, for manipulation through basic drives for drainage disguised as pleasure. Now you only accept what builds your power, your clarity, your wholeness. If you've made it this far, it's because part of you already knows this truth. Part of you already understands that pleasure means nothing if for it you must abandon your power. Are you ready to be different, misunderstood, or even criticized in the name of reclaiming your life force? Are you willing to pay the price of becoming the man you're capable of being? The journey of mastering your energy is not about denying your sexuality, but about consciously directing it. It's about transforming from a being constantly reacting to programmed stimuli into one who chooses when, how, and with whom to express this powerful force. Through this containment, you don't diminish your life, you enhance it, bringing greater clarity, purpose, and authentic connection to everything you do. This path isn't easy. It requires constant vigilance, especially in a world designed to trigger and exploit your most basic drives. But the rewards, increased mental clarity, emotional stability, creative output, and genuine presence far outweigh the momentary pleasures you leave behind. Begin today. Start small. Notice when you reach automatically for stimulation. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself what you're truly seeking. Is it connection, rest, escape from uncomfortable emotions? Then choose consciously whether to proceed or to redirect that energy towards something that truly serves your highest self. Your power awaits. The question is, are you ready to claim it?